back in here and make me a sandwich.
Funny. What's funny? Well, whenever we cook inside, Mom always does the cooking. But whenever we cook outside, you always do it. How come?
Well, it's sort of traditional, I guess. They say a woman's place is in the home, and I suppose as long as she's in the home, she might as well be in the kitchen.
I'm waiting for the superior. Okay, so just move along. No, move along. Sir, miss, first of all, you're a woman. This is a man's job.
Okay.
I don't want to talk to you.
Okay.
Okay. This is a man's job.
Okay.
Okay, so stop acting like a man. Go back in the
You better
kitchen.
not say that about these women, because they will punch you in the stomach. They will kick you in the face. They will show you who's boss. That's right. It's Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock. And yes, madam, today on the SuperCaZt, these women kick butt. Oh yeah.
SuperCaZt, everybody. I'm your host, the man who put the super in SuperCaZt, the super foch. And it wouldn't be the SuperCaZt without my good buddy and partner, SteveZ, the man who put the Z in SuperCaZt.
How's it going, everybody? Hopefully you guys are ready for this one, because this one is exciting. We're ready.
And if you're new to the program, welcome, as we always like to say. We do appreciate everybody joining us here on this episode. And if you are new to the program, and you love this video, please give us a like on YouTube and make sure and subscribe to our channel, and make sure you ring that bell so that you'll know when we have new videos coming out, because again, we love for everybody to be part of our conversation and be part of the SuperCaZt. As Steve said, welcome, and today for your viewing pleasure, we are going back into what we're kind of just really been celebrating over the last couple episodes, and that is martial arts films. If you didn't already know, we did Enter the Dragon, the famous Bruce Lee film, and if you want to see a review on that, go ahead and just search for it on our page, and it'll be right there for you to enjoy.
Yeah, I've just been obsessed with Hong Kong films. I mean, that's why we're really doing this a lot. A lot of martial arts films, a lot of Hong Kong films. Yeah, this one, it's a weird one. It's definitely the most unique of the ones we've covered to this point.
I would say that.
For a lot of reasons. But this one, just in a nutshell, if you're not familiar with it, it's from this series, In the Line of Duty is what we call it here in the States and in Europe. I don't even know if they even called that in Hong Kong at first, but the one we're looking at is Yes, Madam. And this is a special film because it's the beginning of a subgenre of martial arts films called Girls with Guns, which it starts off here in Hong Kong, 1985 with this one. This is considered like ground zero, or the beginning, the genesis of it all. And there's several others in this genre, starring these two women here, but also several others, and goes to Japan, makes its way to anime. So it's definitely had its imprint on our popular culture. I guess in America, the closest thing we've had is Kill Bill, but we definitely got it. So, what was your thoughts on seeing this one for the first time?
Well, as we've talked off the air, saw this movie once. I don't know, at the time of this recording, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and I did like it. I thought it was an entertaining film. I didn't quite understand it, and to be honest, still don't quite understand it. But this last time, when I watched it last night, at the time of this recording, I really enjoy the film for the spectacle of it. And I hope it's right to say that, because I really do feel like there's a lot to see and watch and experience within this film. Of course, Michelle Yeoh really owns this film, and a very young Michelle Yeoh. So, I mean, this is 1985, same age that we were born. So that's been quite a few years ago, and she really owns this film, and that's something that I think you have to stay right from the get-go. But I do feel like there's a lot to talk about within the structure of this film. I don't know that story is extremely high on the list. I'll leave that for you guys to decide, especially you, Steve. But yeah, it's a really entertaining film with a lot to see. Some really good performances led by Michelle Yeoh. But one I think that does need to be talked about, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had sort of a similar experience the first time I watched this. Like I said, I got this great set from 88 Films, and I watched the first one in the series first. And that one, oh my gosh. I mean, you want to talk a 10 out of 10 or just a movie that just defied all expectations while you're watching it. That one just knocked my socks off. So I put this one in, and I expected the similar thing. And it's a different speed. It's a different way of doing things.
It is.
And it worked for me the first time. I still liked it. The second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, I really like this. Especially the fight at the end really worked for me. And it's just kind of grown on me more and more. In fact, preparing for this podcast is the time where just pretty much all the elements clicked for me. Even the weird Halloween music thrown in there. That I found it distracting the first few times, but now I'm like, I would not change that music. It's perfect in here. It's almost like John Carpenter came in and wrote it for this film. But we'll get into the music and stuff later, but I'm kind of with you. Let's start with Michelle Yeoh.
I'm sorry. What happened?
Freeze! I don't know if I have any shots left, but do you want to take the chance, huh?
I mean, she's just magnificent, and I didn't come up with that word. That's a word they use to describe her a lot of times, especially in Magnificent Warriors, film she made just a couple years after this. But she is not a trained martial artist, but she could definitely fool anybody because she danced for years and years. Then she got into modeling, and that's how they found her for this film. She was actually in a Jackie Chan commercial when Sammo Hung was like, "This girl's perfect. Let's put her in this film." Because that's kind of interesting thing. Sammo Hung, the man that I always talk about on these podcasts,
right?
This was his idea. He wanted to put two female leads in a kick butt sort of cop film, and he just picked out Michelle Yeoh as the lead, and I can't argue with that. What did you think about her performance?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, pal. I think it definitely works. And you're going to know way more than me. I call Steve our martial arts expert here on the SuperCaZt. So I will just say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I will just say I don't think a lot of movies at the time were being made with female leads being this action-oriented. You know, we've seen them since then, you know, the Kill Bills and all of that, but I really feel like this was kind of breaking ground back in the mid-'80s to do a movie like this. Probably, especially I think on this side of the world, probably caught a lot of people off guard at this. And I'm curious to know, and I probably should have asked before we started, how this movie was received initially. But I think when you watch it with the modern eyes that we have, I think it just really works with Michelle Yeoh. I think she's very good, very talented. And you wouldn't know, at least I didn't know, I wouldn't have been able to guess that this is pretty much her first foray into filmmaking at this time.
Yeah.
I think she really carries this film, and I think she's just really, really good. Not just the action part, but definitely the acting part. I think she does really well. And yeah, I was really surprised how good she was, especially that second go around.
She brings it, and like you're saying, it's the whole package. I mean, as we were saying, she's a dancer, so she can pull out the martial arts stuff. She's definitely authentic looking. Like she can just sell it. And what impresses me, and I didn't catch this, I caught this from the commentary. this is her first film, and she's sitting here shooting a gun, and she does not blink. She is that good of an actor that she is a cop whenever she does this. I mean, that wouldn't make sense if she just kind of winced or was not handling herself well. And I buy her in this, like her intro in this film. I mean, this opening scene is just, it starts from the get-go. I mean, we got her this little comedy part with the weird creeper guy trying to come into the bookstore, and she arrests him, and then she goes and stops a bank robbery and in violent fashion, takes out everybody, even has a good Dirty Harry moment in there. And at that point, if you're not sold on this movie just for that first 5 minutes, I'm sorry, this movie's not going to work for you. But to me, that first 5 minutes, her introduction, I just can't imagine a better character introduction personally.
I really love how this movie starts, and I think that they did this film a lot of good to start it like that. There's no easing into this film. There's no, build up to an action scene. It's just boom right there. And I think with everything that they have going with the female leads, with this being a martial arts film, I think that's exactly how you have to start this film. I think you have to show that Michelle Yeoh and the other lady can really carry it. And I think the other lady did well too. But Michelle Yeoh really, as you said, and I like what you're saying about her being a cop, because she just wears it. I mean, she's totally believable. And I think that not just from a, attractive standpoint, I think, being a cop standpoint, being an actor playing a cop standpoint, I think she really sells that quite well, especially for this being her first film and everything. So got to give this movie props on the start, because I think that was the perfect way to introduce us into the story and into the character.
Yeah, and it establishes her like as this super cop character. I love it how everybody on the force just looks up to her. They call her Big Sis. They're just like, hey, we don't want to hit on you. You're just like our superior. You're too cool. I mean, that's what I really like about it. You don't see the guys falling over for her. You see, like, man, this woman, she's just tough.
Yeah.
She's probably the best cop on the force. And we got that dynamic. And then we get her other dynamic. You just mentioned her, Cynthia Rothrock, as Inspector Carrie Moss. And she comes in about halfway through the movie because, I mean, I guess we have to mention the plot a little bit. There's a murder. This guy gets killed. And he had a microfilm, and that microfilm randomly gets in the hands of these 3 goofball robbers that I guess we'll get into later. But a lot of people want that microfilm. They're going to kill for it. And meanwhile, Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock are going to investigate. But Cynthia Rothrock, this woman, she's an American that got into Hong Kong action films because she was a real martial artist, and she could just kick butt in real life. So somebody cast her in this film. And she's in a few other just awesome action films, and I think she's really good in this. She is a different dynamic. I would say Michelle's a little softer around the edges. Meanwhile, Cynthia's she's a lot tougher. She's a lot meaner. At least that's how her character comes across. And once again, her intro is amazing. That fight in the airport, like she looks like the damsel in distress. She's got the guys choking her out, and then sure enough, she just spin kicks this guy's to heck and just jumps off the wall and does all this crazy stuff. And then you're just like, the first time you watch it, I don't know if how you thought of it, because I personally knew that she was who she was, but I guess if you did not know who this actress was, and she just all starts kicking this guy's butt, I'm sure it took you for a loop.
Wrong killer!
Stay back.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I wasn't as much on board with this character as I was Michelle Yeoh's character, which I don't think we're supposed to. But I really do like the fact that they made these characters different in a lot of ways. You mentioned that they kind of made Michelle Yeoh's character softer, and that's an interesting word. I don't know that I would have called it that, but I guess that's the best word to use. But this character is definitely more rough around the edges, definitely more aggressive, and a little more Spitfire kind of thing. And I really enjoyed her performance. There's not a bad performance with either one of them, but I don't know. I didn't enjoy that character as much as I did Michelle Yeoh's character. Maybe once we go through this, some things can get cleared up, because I think that was the biggest thing for me, is understanding the motivations, especially with this other character. So I'm sure we'll get into that here in just a bit. But I think from the way she works with Michelle Yeoh's character as far as being sort of different, I think was a really good compliment. And I think that's what makes their dynamic, in the long run anyway, work for this film.
Yeah, and I can hear what you're saying, but you're a little more critical of her. And I was kind of actually the same way whenever I watched it the first few times. Her character she's abrasive, and you can tell that she's dubbed. Which I think as an actress, it's kind of brilliant the way she found it around it. Because she didn't know any Cantonese at the time. She just asked them, how many syllables is it? So she would just mouth that many syllables so they could dub over a little bit better. But that aside, her character, the way it's written, I like her arc a little bit, because they're not seeing eye to eye at the beginning.
Right.
And then by the end, though, when we go to our final fight, they're just slapping each other fives. They're ready to go. That, to me, that's a cool part of the film, is just how they do kind of come together.
Yeah.
And definitely she plays the action very well. She is the scene with the umbrella where she just tears it off and starts swinging around everywhere. That's just top 10 little moments of almost any Hong Kong film for me. Just that whole final fight. But we'll get into that a lot later. I guess we've already touched upon it a little bit. This film is a little bit of a buddy cop film. But the weird thing about it, and I guess this was one, the plot is kind of funky, is you just randomly get dropped into these other characters that you didn't even know they were supposed to be central characters at the time. And I don't know, it's these robbers. They're these guys. It's John Shu, he's the head guy, I guess, even though he's kind of like the most he's kind of the most meek, I would say. Strepsil, which if you watch these movies, there's like 3 or 4 different names for these guys. Right. So I'm just going to say the names that I found on IMDb. But John Sham, he's the guy with the curly hair. He's goofy. But we get introduced to him. He and Hui Mong are robbing this place, and they actually discover this dead body. And then sure enough, they're being pursued by these killers. But these guys, what do you think about their element of?
Well, obviously, I think they're supposed to be more or less comedy relief, kind of just goofballs, kind of just they're definitely played or written, I should say, for a laugh. Because I mean, they're funny guys and they act funny, they talk funny, that kind of thing. I don't think I felt like it was almost too much of them for me, in my view, because it kind of took away from what was really going on. So I found them a little distracting, but not so much like, oh my gosh, they ruined the film. But I wouldn't say they're my favorite part of the film, but they're okay.
Yeah. And once again, I can see your critique here, because I felt the same way the first few times I watched this film. Their parts are definitely the weaker parts. I mean, because even old John Sham, he's a lot funnier in other films. This one, he actually has to get very dramatic toward the end, and I don't know if that's the best thing for him as an actor. I could see how he was challenging himself a little bit, but their Three Stooges goofiness, it definitely conflicts, and I guess that's the big thing about this film. And pretty much you should know you get into.
That's a good way.
If you get into this, or pretty much any Hong Kong film of the time, is you're gonna have these really kick butt action sequences that are dangerous. I mean, these stunts are crazy, and the action is brutal. But then you have lighthearted comedy in here But this one is different because this one goes in places you didn't expect it to go. It gets kind of dark,
right,
and it gets kind of violent. What did you think about that part of the film?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I had made a mental note about this. The tone definitely switches at one point of this film, and I was not prepared for that. I guess I should have been, because I've noticed this with other films that we've done in the genre, that all of a sudden the tone will just, switch over. I thought it was a little bit jarring at first, and I know I kind of sound like I'm railing on this film. I'm really not. I really did love this film for a lot of reasons, and I didn't mind this tone shift. I thought that was actually kind of interesting, and I really think that it worked in the space of the film. But yeah, like you said, you got to kind of be prepared for it, because it will come out of nowhere. At least it did for me, because I was just like, okay, we're gonna go do like this, all right. It just didn't feel like that was to be anticipated, at least for my first watch anyway.
Yeah, and because it comes, the violence is definitely amped up, because I would say most of these Sammo Hung type films that would fit this mold of comedy and action, they don't get this dark. You don't have anybody having an apple shoved in his mouth and getting shot in the face like that. You don't have a guy's best friend getting killed right in front of him. It's really rough, and especially the way that Corey Yoon directs it. And I'm going to get to him a little bit more later. But the three guys, they do definitely conflict, especially the scene where they actually go see their Sifu, who's played by the great Sammo Hung. Once I got to throw him out there. That scene definitely is from a different movie. I don't know where that comes from, but this, I don't know, their part actually worked for me this time, and I'll tell you why. Especially DeSalis, John Shum. I think he's the heart of the film. I think their stuff, their ambition to help out their Sifu, they're raising their money the only way they know how, their friendship, their bond, even their squabbling, it endears me to them, and I like them. Granted, I do like the other part of the film more, but I do like their heart that they bring to it, because it adds a little more emotion to it. It adds a little more stakes, because you think about it, these guys, their life was, it was not the perfect, but it's pretty nice. The stuff they shared, and it's sort of tragic how it just falls apart for them as this movie goes on, and I guess that's why the ending kind of doesn't sit well for me. But I do like where this film goes and their story, where it goes. It's definitely not the mold, it's not the model, and I kind of applaud them for kind of pushing the envelope a little bit.
I'm with you there, actually, and this brings up to a question that I'm going to ask you, but I'll go ahead and say this first. I really did appreciate, for the most part, where this story went as far as the action's concerned, the violence. I don't think it ever really gets ultra, too violent, at least from my memory. But what about you? Do you feel like that with because I know you have watched a lot more martial arts films than I have, and so you've probably got a good appetite of what you like in a film. Do you feel like it serves the film well to push boundaries, or what do you think? How do you think the violence ratio goes as opposed to everything else that's going on in the film that makes it a good martial arts film, if that makes sense at all?
Well, I guess it does. So this one doesn't go as far as some of the stuff that comes out later. Because, the third film of this series, there's a guy that gets run over by a car and his intestines go all over the street. So nothing like that, which is great. That kind of makes me sick thinking about it. But this one, definitely the darkness, I think it's almost it's a help for it, just because it makes it, it helps blend the cartoon tone with the violence. I think if you had too much of the violence, sort of like we were talking about Live and Let Die last week, if we had too much of this and not enough of this, the yin and the yang, if you will, it doesn't work. It is a totally different film. Corey Yuen, now that we're talking about him, I guess, I really like him as a director. He studied under Sammo. He went to the same like Peking Opera School and all that. And his films, they are shot like the same, but at the same time, they have a harder edge to them. And this one, I think it definitely does. It's our main characters at the end, they become renegade cops, and they are not fighting on the good side, you would say. They're sort of in the middle, fighting their own justice. And I don't think that happens in like a Jackie Chan film. I don't think that happens in I mean, yes, Bruce Lee got that dark at times, and that's probably why I like this one. But it's definitely, Corey Yuen takes this genre into different places, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that the violence was, I don't think it ever goes too far either. I think that it does get pretty dark in some places, as you said. But I do feel like that, it doesn't hurt the film as far as the violence is concerned. It doesn't go too far and make it unwatchable. And I think it complements the story, even though the story is probably not the strongest part of the film.
No.
And the action is definitely what you remember after this film. But yeah, I think the choreography of these fights, especially where Michelle Yeoh's concerned, and I know we'll probably get into more specifics with certain scenes here in just a minute, but I think the choreography of these fights really hits a good place for me aesthetically. It really does make the film more epic and everything, and it plays all of that action up pretty well, I would say.
Totally agree with you. And I guess as we're talking about sort of what makes this film work, I got to talk about these villains, because they kind of hit what we're talking about with these different tones and just this darkness, because to me the villains are equal parts comic book hilarity, silliness, but also very menacing. They're frightening people, especially Dick Wei as the chief assassin that you see for most of the film. He's like a guy not to be reckoned with, and in case you didn't know, he has Michael Myers music that accompanies him as he goes around. He's definitely got menace to him. And I like that, because oftentimes in these films you do not feel that fear from the villains, and at the same time they kind of work in this sort of comedic way, especially the main bad guy, his laugh. I mean, have you ever heard a better bad guy laugh in your life? He just...
法官 ，Yes sir， 田先生，麻煩你都跟埋我哋翻去。冇問題，協助警方消滅罪案係我哋市民應盡嘅責任。
ha 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 ha. I cannot mimic it. It's just great. What did you think about the bad guys in this film?
That's probably number 2 for me as far as what I liked about this film is the villains. I don't know what it is, man, but it's like if the villain is weak in a film, I feel like that just ruins the film. I really feel like that as much as you want to root on the good guys and you want, good to over trump evil, you gotta have good villains. You gotta have people that pose a big threat. Oh my gosh, how are they gonna get through this film in particular? I really think that the bad guys posed a legitimate threat and were entertaining to watch, and I thought were portrayed very well. They weren't corny. They didn't make a whole lot of corny jokes or Snidely Whiplash kind of things. They weren't jokey a lot. There was some humor, I guess. But I think for the most part, they really did the job of a villain well. At least I would say.
Bad? Well, you didn't do too bad yourself, Carrie. That is, apart from those 2 behind you.
Ah, that's typical of women, always talking. You're right. That's why their tongues are much longer.
Well, you mustn't forget, among those women happens to be your mother's.
Don't insult my mother, I'll cut your tongue out of your mouth.
Oh, you like playing with knives, do you? Just watch out for his bite. You might catch rabies.
Hey, I don't need a knife. At least not to fight a woman.
Yeah, I totally agree. I already mentioned the 2 main bad guys, but gotta throw out Fat Chong as Mad Dog. He's like dressed in these like an army uniform or something. He fights with a knife. I mean, I don't know. To me, they're like characters from like some sort of Nintendo game, like some final bosses or something. They have that vibe to them, but I really like them too. I think they're very colorful, but at the same time, like we were saying, they're very menacing. I mean, they kill one of our little joyful guys, Choi Hark. He gets killed, and it's just like, man, that's terrible. Like, I did not expect that. Several things we have to get back in here, but the music to me is something you have to talk about. It's got that 80s synth tone to it, obviously, but we've already mentioned the Halloween music. Gotta have that. But to me, just all the music in it, just kind of, it's a great palette, and they leave it in there at the crucial times, and they'll pull it out at the crucial times too when it really needs to hit. You have anything to say about the music?
I really think that they used music extremely well in this film. I think that it was very carefully added or taken away, like you said, with some scenes. And, you know, it wasn't distracting. It wasn't overpowering. I'm not going to say it's the most memorable score ever in the history of film. But I think for this film, for all the action and suspense and everything that it's trying to go for, I think it really complemented all that as far as the visuals were concerned. I don't know that I would be able to pick it out without this film, but I do think it was good enough that I think it really complemented what this film was setting out to do. And I do give the composer a lot of credit for what they came up with, because again, you're in the 80s. You're going to expect an 80s sound of some kind, you know. And as we've gotten older, as I've gotten older especially, I've really began to appreciate that 80s sound that I wasn't so much keen on when we were kids, but definitely now. And so to hear it in this film, like I said, I don't think it was overbearing. I don't think it was distracting. I think it fit. I think it fit perfectly with what the whole vibe of the movie was.
I totally agree with you. And to me, this is my jam. The synth pop, synth rock, or whatever it is. It's just like in my DNA. And the main theme from this one, I will play it over and over again. Even though it's only like 2 minutes long, I will just play it again. It's like, or I'll create a playlist and it's just going to recommend similar songs. So the music for me really works. And like I said, this past time I watched it, even the Halloween music worked for me. I was just like, it kind of fits. Even though it's John Carpenter, it kind of fits. So we got a couple arcs going on in this film, and that's the story's kind of weak, but to me I like the characters, like we've been saying. I like how they all are doing their own thing, and then they kind of the stories converge together at the end. Right. And this finale, I just love it. I love it that our little meat guy, Tonsalis, he gets pushed to the brink where he just loads up with all these fake guns, some of them, and one real gun, and he's got a grenade. He's going to go in there and save his friend by himself. He doesn't care. I love how he just runs out and gets on his motorcycle and goes over there. Yeah. And it doesn't really go as he plans, but luckily our two amazing women show up and they are ready to fight. And this finale, fight, first you have like your crazy 88 type fight where they have to fight all the goons, And then they fight the two main bad guys, and it's just a joy. Like it seems like it's like 30 minutes of the film. I think it's only like 10 or so.
Right.
But I'm just on the edge of my seats the whole thing. I'm just up in arms. I want to just watch this scene over and over.
100% agree. I think whatever problems you have with this film, or at least I had with this film, coming into that scene, I think makes up for it in droves. I think that the scene is shot very good. I think there's a lot of excitement. Where it kind of reminds me of a video game, like your boss level kind of thing. And there's just a lot of energy going into this. And so you're sitting there, like you said, and you're almost levitating off your seat. You're just so excited to see this, especially when our two female leads come in, because you know that they're coming, and they come in guns blazing, literally. And it was exciting. It was fun. I thought it was very kind of sort of like a good cowboy film, with the sheriff riding into town to save the day or whatever. But yeah, I think that whatever problems I have with this film, as far as story or even pacing sometimes was not the best for me on this film, I really do feel like the climax was carefully crafted, was carefully constructed, from the writing of it to the staging of it. I think that it really sold me on this film, especially that second viewing. I liked it the first time, but it just paid off so much better second time around. And why that is, I don't really know. Maybe I was not as sleepy or something. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, okay. I get it now. But yeah, I think it was a perfect way to end this film. And just talking about it, just kind of replaying it in my head a little bit. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And I think that when you go into this film expecting more than having fun, you may be a little disappointed. But I think if you go in there wanting to have a good time, especially with this ending, totally works.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of the thing, and you've kind of hit the nail on the head, is this final scene elevates the rest of the film. It makes you want to watch it again, that maybe you will sit through that stuff and get a deeper appreciation for all that. Because this final action sequence, I mean, you could tell like these films are in conversation with each other, because Police Story is being shot across the town, or maybe a few months before. This one, it's a similar sort of ending. It's shot's amazing. You got guys being thrown through glass, some crazy stunts where you're like, these guys got hurt. And I'm sure our female leads, they got hurt a good bit too, but
probably,
they pull it off so well. It's exciting. My son actually got into this when we were watching this morning. He shouted whenever she jumped down the steps and kicked that guy. It's awesome. But the actual ending, it's kind of a downer. And
yeah,
this is the part where I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't almost fit with the film, because it's, in the end, our two leads get arrested. I mean, this is spoiler alert. We haven't said that yet.
Yeah.
But they get arrested. They're getting carted off. And then our two lovable losers, one of them just gets pushed to the brink. He gets a gun and shoots the bad guy's dead.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the film. And you're kind of like, that's kind of dark. But I don't know. I just think there's so much else that works in this film that makes me want to come back to it.
Yeah.
That even the ending not really hitting for me. I know the statement he's trying to make, but I just think the execution of it not the best. But I just think that the action kind of lifts it up enough for me that I still like this film a lot.
I agree with you. I think the action definitely serves this film extremely well. I think it really keeps your attention on this film. And me not being as inept on martial arts films like you, I watched that very end and the way this film ends. And let me just say, I'm glad that you said what you said, because it really did kind of fluster me a little bit. And I think it did the first time, especially of, what's going on here? This is the end, and there's no explanation or anything like that. And so, yeah, I've grown to try to accept a lot of things that are in these films that you might not see in quote-unquote American films, especially in things like this. I do applaud to being so different, because sometimes sometimes movies are just so predictable on how they're going to end, and you're like, yeah, okay. So to be like this, I appreciated what they were trying to do, even if I didn't quite agree with it, I guess, best way to say that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I hope you come back and watch it again, because like I'm saying, it's one of those that just keeps growing, and I do think this is an important film. I mean, and it should make you get up on your seats and cheer a little bit. These two women, they bring it. They kick butt, and I think the other stuff kind of works too. The whole series is great, and I can't wait till you watch the others, and I can hear your thoughts on those. But this has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, definitely. This movie is very enjoyable, and if you sit through it and you really, give this movie a chance, I really think you're going to enjoy it. If you are even just a casual fan like myself of martial arts films, which I'm trying to elevate from a casual fan, but one film at a time, right?
On the next episode of the SuperCaZt.
From the deep, dark recesses of the mind of Mel Brooks. I love him. Young Frankenstein.
Life, you hear me? Give my creation life!
Sky means business.
Starring Gene Wilder as Dr. Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Peter Boyle as the monster. Marty Feldman as Igor.
My grandfather used to work for your grandfather.
I'm sure we'll get along splendidly. Oh.
Cloris Leachman as Frau Blucher. And Madeline Kahn as Elizabeth.
What are you going to do to me? I'm not afraid of you.
Kill the monster!
See Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein.
Yes, I think we could all use a good laugh.
But don't see it alone. Don't miss Young Frankenstein, personally directed by Mel Blazing Saddles Brooks, in black and white. No offense.
We have done a couple other reviews. If you're new to the program, we have done Police Story, and by the time this comes out, our Enter the Dragon review should be up. So if you guys are new to the program and would love to hear our views on those films, tell your friends about us.
Thanks everybody for being a part of the show, commenting. Hopefully people keep sharing these films, and we're definitely trying to spread the love about it. It's a great genre of films. Hong Kong films are great, and we just want more people watching them and more people listening to the SuperCaZt. So definitely tell your friends, share it around people. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for my buddy Steve Z, I am the Super Foch. We'll see you guys next time on the SuperCaZt.